Yeah.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this world. And today we are dealing with our part two of the historical origins and development of racism. Race, the power of an illusion. Illusion being a false idea or false belief. And this is by George M. Frederickson, a Stanford University historian in the US. Now you will remember we ended our part one with the climax in the history of racism, which came in the 1900s with the rise and fall of racist regimes. With the American South passage of segregation laws and restrictions on blacks' voting rights, which reduced them to lower caste status. So that's where we left off. Now we are beginning our part two. So let's go, shall we? Extreme propaganda against black males, portrayed as ravaging beasts lasting after white women, as if there were no black women, served to rationalize the practice of lynching. The racist regime and state law was avoiding sexual contamination through rape or interracial marriages between whites and discernible African ancestry. Racist ideology was eventually carried out to its extreme in the Nazi Germany, where Hitler and his cahoots attempted to exterminate the entire ethnic group. It was said that Hitler gave racism a bad name, as if racism had a good name before World War II. Nobody is talking about the extermination of 10 million Congolese by King Leopold II between 1885 and 1908. So it only had a bad name after Jews, which were whites, were exterminated in Germany. And this led to moral revulsion throughout the world against scientific studies, that is, genetics or eugenics. Eugenics being the planned breeding by racist scientists against black people. And this discredited scientific racism, which had been reputable and influential in the US and EU before World War II. Now, explicit racism came under devastating attack from the decolonization of Africa, Asia, and their representatives in the UN. The US civil rights movement, a success of outlawing legalized segregation and discrimination in the 1960s, drew crucial support and growing sense of the threatened US national interests when blacks were mistreated and abused. Now, in the competition with the Soviet Union, for the hearts and minds of the independent Africans and Asians. Jim Crow ideology became a national embarrassment and one of the racist regimes that survived Second World War and Cold War was South Africa in 1948. The laws passed banning all marriages or sexual relations between population groups and separate development, etc., signified the same obsession with race purity that characterized other racist regimes. However, world opinion on Holocaust induced apartheid apologists to avoid straightforward biological racism and settle for separate development, that is, cultural rather than physical differences. That is, settle for what they called a cultural essentialist or cultural determinism, as opposed to biological racism. Now, the defeat to Nazi Germany, Jim Crow laws in the US in the 1960s, and majority rule in South Africa suggest that the regimes based on biological racism and its cultural essentialists are gone. But no, the system is not gone. Racism does not, however, require full support of the state, the law, nor ideology centered on the concept of biological inequality. Discrimination by institutions and individuals against others, blacks in the case of South Africa, can long persist and even flourish under the illusion of non-racism, discovered Brazilian historians. Like, for an example, in South Africa, we have this illusion of a rainbow nation or of democracy, which is an illusion because racism still persists. Racism is still practiced by institutions. For an example, if you go to places like banks, your interest rates as a black person are not the same as white people. And if you go to the workplace, that's another example. How black people are being treated in the workplaces. In the workplace, we have what is called Irish coffee syndrome. Irish coffee syndrome is a situation where you have the cream is white at the top, that's Irish coffee, and it is darker at the bottom. Black people don't have don't hold positions where they can take decisions. They hold very low level positions where the only thing that they must do is just to carry orders from the top. The use of alleged deep-seated differences as a justification for hostilities and discrimination against newcomers from Global South in EU countries led to allegations of new cultural racism. Recent examples of functionally racist cultural determinism are not, in fact, unprecedented. They rather represent to the way that the differences between groups could be made to seem indelible or permanent and unbridgeable before articulation of a scientific or naturalistic concept of race in the 18th century or 1700s. So what we are learning here is that The first signs of racism started in Spain, where Jews were identified with devil and witchcraft. And from there, it went to other places in Europe, America. Remember during the slavery days where Africans were enslaved by Americans and Europeans. And it did not end there. It came to places like South Africa. We know when our problems as Black South Africans actually started, and still persisting and flourishing up to this day. But what is I find amazing is how South African racist regime survived World War II and also Cold War. And I'm sure it did not survive because it was a very strong country. Yeah, I'm sure it survived because of the support that it was getting from the collective West, something that we believe is still happening up to this day. Because yes, today racism is not a government policy. It is not supported by the law or ideology, but it is being practiced by institutions, by individuals who on a daily basis systematically discriminate against Black people or Africans in particular. And we are wondering how long shall we have to suffer, because we elected what we thought was a democratic government in 1994. But for the past 30 years, we are not reaping any fruits. Things are still the same. Yes, there were some changes in terms of the laws that were uprooted. All the apartheid laws were uprooted. But the systemic racism still continues. And we don't seem to be finding a solution. We don't seem to be finding or electing people who can make a fundamental change where everybody will be given equal opportunities, where the economy will be opened to everyone, where the color of our skin won't matter anymore, where, if I may use the words of Bob Marley, where in one of his songs, The War, where he is talking about the philosophy of one man being superior to another, a philosophy that should be abandoned and discredited. And good people, that's how we come to the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed the episode and looking forward to the next one. And what I will ask you again, please subscribe, share the video, click the like button. Thank you. See you next time. Bye-bye.